The Kurds are an ethnic group native to a mountainous region spanning several countries in the Middle East, including parts of Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. They live in northern Mesopotamia, northern Zagros Mountains, and southern Caucasus. They have their own distinct language, Kurdish, and cultural traditions. Despite their shared identity, the Kurds do not have a sovereign nation-state of their own. Kurds form a significant minority in Turkey, primarily residing in the eastern and southeastern regions. There is a substantial Kurdish population in western Iran. Northern Iraq, particularly the Kurdistan region, has a large Kurdish population. The Kurds in Iraq have experienced a degree of autonomy. Kurds are also found in the northeastern part of Syria, and they have played a prominent role in the Syrian civil war. Kurds are one of the largest and most important ethnic groups in the Middle East. There are between about 35 million and about 40 million Kurds. Their Kurdistan area is about 46.86 Kelvin square kilometers. According to these, Kurds possess significant requirements to form a sovereign state, but unfortunately they were not allowed to. Throughout their territories, they face harsh oppression, persecution, murder, and extensive destruction. Kurds are one of the most oppressed populations in the world. The reasons behind this can be traced back to the end of World War I and the fall of the Ottoman Empire. In a series of conferences from 1919 to 1921 after the war, leaders such as Prime Minister David Lloyd George, Georges Clemenceau of France, and Woodrow Wilson gathered in European palaces to redraw the world map. Their goals included redistributing German imperial holdings, dismantling the Austro-Hungarian Empire, penalizing Germany in Europe, and addressing the vacuum left by the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. The guiding principle for this map redrawing, known as ethnonationalism, was based on the idea that nation-states should ideally consist of single races or ethnic and linguistic populations. As a result, new races, such as Hungarians or Austrians, were defined or created, and borders were drawn around them. Sykes-Picot Agreement, dividing French and British spheres of influence, hindered the creation of a new, large Kurdistan under British control. The British, aiming to counterbalance French dominance, invented the country of Iraq. Colonial administrators, such as Gertrude Bell, advocated retaining a Kurdish population in Iraq to counterbalance the Shiite majority. This divide-and-conquer strategy aimed to prevent unity among various groups. Suspecting oil reserves in the Mosul region, the British sought to keep it within Iraq's borders. The victorious wartime powers strategically exploited the Kurdish situation, much like they did with Palestine, to deliberately create a crisis and exhaust the region's resources and energies. The colonial powers, achieving success, not only drained the resources and vitality but also fueled hate and conflict among the Kurds, Arabs, Turks, and Iranians in Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. This calculated approach sowed seeds of hatred and discord, contributing to enduring tensions across the Middle East. The Syrian government has implemented policies aimed at suppressing Kurdish culture, including restrictions on language and cultural practices. Kurdish language and identity were suppressed, with efforts to Arabize Kurdish areas. Kurds have been politically marginalized, with limited representation in government institutions. The Ba'athist regime, in particular, excluded Kurds from meaningful participation in political processes. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the guy who shaped modern Turkey, wasn't a fan of Kurdish pride. He basically said no to the Kurdish language and culture, making Kurds switch to the Turkish way. In Iraq, Sunni Muslim Kurds faced a tough time, no national holiday celebrations for them. Saddam Hussein even used chemical weapons on them in Halabja. Despite a 1970 promise of autonomy in Iraq, Kurds still face problems. Iran joined the party, wrecking Kurdish villages. It's been a rough ride for the Kurds since World War I. Turkey doesn't care much about the Kurds. They use the Kurdish situation as an excuse for their involvement in Syria due to their issues with the Damascus regime. Turkey has a history of attacking Kurds in the Kurdistan region within its borders, limiting their political engagement and party formation. Turkey's concerns about the Kurdish groups in Syria, particularly the People's Protection Units YPG and the Democratic Union Party PYD. Turkey views these Kurdish groups as extensions of the Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK, designated as a terrorist organization in Turkey. Ankara fears that the establishment of a Kurdish autonomous region in northern Syria could fuel separatist sentiments among the Kurdish population in Turkey. As a result, Turkey has carried out military operations, such as Operation Euphrates Shield and Operation Olive Branch, to counter what it perceives as a threat posed by Kurdish groups in Syria. An estimated 12 million Kurds live in Iran, between 15–17% of the population. They also encounter oppression with restrictions on their cultural and political activities. The government limits the use of the Kurdish language and hinders cultural practices, leading to discrimination in education, employment, and political engagement. Kurdish activists often face crackdowns and persecution. Despite being a substantial ethnic minority, Kurds in Iran struggle for their basic rights and cultural autonomy. And Kurds are also used and manipulated by countries, especially the United States, to achieve their own goals. Firstly, at this point, the British were the first ones who crushed the hope of Kurdistan dream, who crushed the short-lived kingdom of Kurdistan in Iraq during the early 1920s. A few years later, the British were okay to witness the establishment of a Kurdish Republic of Ararat, because it was on Turkish territory. But it turned out that the Turks were more important to the British than the Kurds, so the United Kingdom eventually let Turkey go ahead and abolish the new Kurdish. There were initial discussions about the possibility of Kurds having their own country after World War I. However, the British changed their stance when they found the significant oil reserves in Kirkuk and nearby regions. Instead of supporting a separate Kurdish nation, they decided to create countries that could control all the oil resources from the former Ottoman Empire to instabilities to achieve their goals. Following World War II, the United States assumed a prominent role in the Middle East, gradually replacing the British as a key player in the region. During the rule of Abdul Karim Qasim in Iraq from 1958 to 1963, the U.S. provided support to Iraqi Kurds, as Qasim was perceived to be deviating from U.S. interests. In 1963, the U.S. supported a military coup, in which a young Saddam Hussein played a role, leading to the removal of Qasim from power. However, after the coup, the U.S. abruptly terminated its support for the Kurds and, notably, supplied napalm to the new Iraqi government. This deadly incendiary weapon was used against Kurdish rebels during the First Iraqi-Kurdish War in the late 1960s. Another one. Throughout the 1980s, the Iraqi government, led by Saddam Hussein, engaged in a brutal campaign amounting to genocide against the Kurdish population, which included the notorious use of chemical weapons. Despite being aware of Saddam's deployment of nerve gas, the Reagan administration, influenced by its geopolitical interests, and the ongoing Iran-Iraq war, chose to downplay the atrocities and maintain support for Saddam Hussein's regime. And there is more. During the Clinton administration in the 1990s, the Kurds in Iraq were considered the good Kurds as they faced persecution from Iraq, a common enemy. However, Kurds in Turkey, who are annoying and U.S. ally, were labeled the bad Kurds. The U.S., in a contradictory stance, provided Turkey with substantial weaponry, used with U.S. knowledge to carry out extensive violence, resulting in the deaths of tens of thousands of Kurds and the destruction of numerous villages. And again now, Kurds have become best friends with the USA in the Syrian war. The Kurds, especially through the Syrian Democratic Forces SDF, showed strong dedication in battling ISIS with vital backing from the USA. They played a significant role in key battles, like the recapture of Raqqa from ISIS. The partnership involved substantial U.S. support, including air cover, training, and weapons. The Kurds' commitment not only aimed at defeating ISIS, but also revealed their desire for an independent state, highlighting their resilience and determination in the fight. That was under Obama, the Kurds received strong support in battling ISIS. However, when Trump took over, he abruptly withdrew that support, leaving the Kurds feeling betrayed and exposed. Kurds were left with broken hope, but casualties and numerous deaths. Most people of these countries, especially governments, want Palestinians to be liberated from oppression of Israel, want Syria to be democratic, and bring peace and prosperity to the Middle East, but they should never forget about suffering and oppression of Kurds in their own countries. It's also not to forget that Kurds are sometimes imaged as terrorists. It is just because Kurds were being manipulated and used as a tool by foreign power to achieve their own goals, making use of Kurds' desire for liberation. Kurds dream of having their own independent country called Kurdistan, covering parts currently in Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. To make this happen, these countries would have to let go of control over the Kurdish regions within their borders. The Kurds are determined to keep striving for independence, and it's crucial for everyone in the region to find practical solutions to this issue. The challenge lies in finding a balance that respects the rights and aspirations of the Kurdish people while fostering stability and cooperation in the broader regional context.